Hey guys, it's Ryan here with HobbiesofaMan once again, and today we're doing our check-in video for the month of August. So it's been kind of weird. On one hand, I feel like I've had a lot of time because the semester has been ending, and although I had a lot of projects, there wasn't much going on in terms of class. Like I didn't have to go to class all that much compared to previous times or previous months. And at the same time, I also felt like I was incredibly busy the whole month just with the projects themselves. So it's kind of weird. Like on one hand, I felt like I had a lot of time, and on the other, I didn't. The reason why I didn't do any videos over the weekend was because my old friend, my old roommate that moved out in July, came back to do a hooding ceremony for his PhD program, basically like the graduation part of the ceremony. And I was hosting him and his family, so it was, I had other things on my mind, other things taking up my time, and so I couldn't do videos like I wanted to. But here we are. Let's get back into it. And hopefully I won't have any interruptions going forward, unless I get a job, which might be happening. I'm not really sure. So, yeah, in terms of what I've been watching, not much, to be honest with you. I did watch a few episodes of Titans on HBO Max. I did watch a few episodes of Doom Patrol on HBO Max after watching the first season of Peacemaker and enjoying it. The thing is that those two shows that I just mentioned, Doom Patrol and Teen Titans, are not quite as good as Peacemaker in my opinion. Like, they're enjoyable, they're fun, and I do like the characters a lot, particularly in Doom Patrol, but the storylines just don't seem all that interesting to me. And although while I'm watching it, I am enjoying myself, after I finish watching an episode and I log off from HBO Max for the day, I'm not sure that I feel the need to go back and watch more, if that makes sense. Like, it is enjoyable while it's on, but it is not so enjoyable that I go out of my way to seek it out, if that makes sense, which is not great in the era of streaming, right? That is kind of the opposite that you want with streaming. But if it was a show that released on regular television, that would actually be kind of a good thing, right? Because shows on television come out whenever they come out, and if you're watching it, you have to, or if you don't, you don't, right? So I think that those shows maybe are not for me. Maybe they're something that I can watch when I have nothing better to do. So we'll see if I continue to watch those. Otherwise, I did watch all of the episodes so far of Dan to Dan Season 2. I really have been enjoying it. I skipped the first 3 because those were from the movie, which I've watched, and I don't necessarily feel like watching many times. But everything that was new was freaking awesome. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. And my favorite episode so far has been the one where the Hayashi show up. Just the music that they play is very much the type of music that I like. The fact that Mark Hudson, who's the singer for Dragon Force, did the lyrics in English was great. I really enjoyed that. And just the funny way in which the characters just headbang like crazy is just really fun. The ending there where Seiko accepts the reality of the situation and just kind of goes along with it is also quite good. And the transition away from the evil eye into more storytelling is quite good, and I really did enjoy it. I have liked the anime a lot. Also, the new opening and the new ending are really fun. The new opening to me reminds me a lot of the Teen Titans opening. I don't know if that's true or not, but it was like Teen Titans and like a Naruto Shippuden opening that kind of came together to form whatever the new opening for Dan to Dan is. And I don't know if I'm crazy or not. My friends that I watched the show with kind of were like, yeah, I can kind of see it, but not quite. What do you guys think? Do you think that the Dan to Dan opening reminds you of Teen Titans? And the reason it does is because there's these like lines across with a specific color coding element that ties into a character, and they kind of move through, right? And then there's these lines that go through the screen, and that just feels like the only time I've ever seen it besides the Dan to Dan opening was in the Teen Titans opening, right, from the early 2000s. But maybe I'm wrong, I'm not really sure. Also watched Wednesday, Season 2, Part 1. I actually really enjoy Wednesday. I think it's a really fun show. I like the insane delivery that, Ortega can do, and I also really like Enid as a character. Some of the secondary and tertiary characters don't really matter to me too much, but the Addams family is really fun, and I like them. And I enjoy the fact that even with other weird people around them, the Addams family manages to still be the weirdest, right? And, I'm not necessarily someone that's like crazy about needing to be, portrayed or in some way, represented in television. I grew up watching all sorts of stuff, and I identify with all sorts of characters, regardless of whether they look like me or not. But it is fun to see, Gomez and the rest of the Addams family be clearly like Hispanic or Hispanic adjacent characters, and it's pretty good. I like that a lot. But it doesn't really make too much of a difference. Like if there were a bunch of white people, it would have and they had the same kind of vibe, it would have been fun either way, right? But the fact that, they speak English and they use Spanish phrases here and there, and they do kind of these things that, tie back to the fact that they are Hispanic presenting is quite good. I do like it. So yeah, let's see. Other than that, that's really all I've been watching. I haven't done any movie watching so far this month, although Superman just came out on HBO, so I might watch it there sometime this weekend. Otherwise, I've mostly just been reading a lot. So let's start with the novels, since there's not that many of them. I've read through Bloodline, which is Cradle number 9. I've read through Reaper, which is Cradle number 10, and I've read through Dread God, which is Cradle number 11. The only one that I have left is Cradle number 12, which I think is called Waybound. And then after that, I will have to find a way to buy Threshold for myself, and hopefully get to keep a copy of it, because Kindle does not allow you to download the copies of the files anymore. But Cradle is a great series. I really, really love it. I think it's a great, phenomenal kind of transition kind of type of series for people that are into manga or comic books and want to get into traditional fantasy novels. It's also kind of a good transitionary type thing the other way around. But in general, it's just a really good series. It's really fun. And for me, it really gets to what I want out of storytelling. It's about stuff that I enjoy, maybe not all the things that I enjoy, but quite a lot of them. And it works really, really nicely. And Will White does a great job at portraying this kind of, exciting, action-oriented style where the character is going through things and he's trying to save the world, but it is not necessarily like this epic God-given quest. I mean, it kind of is, but not really within the story of Cradle. It is a self-imposed quest that the heavens agree with, right? It is not necessarily like this farmer boy was destined to do this, right? Lyndon was not destined to do anything. Lyndon chose to do these things, and luckily was able to find the right people to help him along this journey, right? And it happens that there is like a godly character that is on his side, or maybe two of them, but not quite in the way that you would expect from like a traditional, like, this is your destiny kind of thing, right? So been reading that. I also read Valley of the Worm, which is a Robert E. Howard story. It's a James Allison story, and it focuses on a ancestor of his called Njord, who is basically the first dragon slayer or the first creature slayer in the alternative history version of our world that Robert E. Howard used as the basis for his Therian Age, Hyborian Age, and of course his modern day characters, which were modern day in the 1920s, no longer modern day today, but still within that kind of vibe, right? And otherwise, I haven't really read any other novels. I did read quite a bit of fan fiction this month, but I never really mentioned that, and I don't really feel like mentioning it here either. But I have read quite a bit of it throughout this month. It's just been easy to get on my phone instead of go out of my way to pick up a book, I guess. So other than that, comic book time. So I started the month off reading Heavy Metal, book 2. I love this Elric cover. It looks really, really nice. This issue is not necessarily as good as the first one, in my opinion, mostly because there's certain stories that I just didn't like. Whereas previously, I didn't mind any of them. I didn't necessarily love all of them, but I did like most of them. Whereas in this one, there were some stories that I was not interested in at all. I didn't like them, and I would have preferred that they weren't in the book. But within the context of what this storyline, what this book is, I think it worked really, really nicely. Everything is good. Everything is, you know, within the scope of heavy metal. It's just not necessarily to my taste. But I am going to continue to collect this for as long as it comes out. I think it's really, really fun and really enjoyable. And I love the concept. I just hope that there's more stories that fit my taste going forward, although I don't necessarily think that that will be the case, and that's okay. I don't really mind. Some of the storytelling, some of the editorial stuff in here was quite good as well. There were some interviews with different creators. There was this prose story that was pretty good as well. And the editorial aspect here telling us about some of the different, stuff throughout life, like the dossier segment. It talks about Argosy, and it talks about Michael Moorcock, and it talks about witchploitation and xenomorphs and stuff like that, and it's really, really cool. So overall, I recommend you guys track these down if you haven't, and I'm really happy that the comic book magazine is coming back into vogue. I think it's really great. I think it's useful for people as it allows them to experience a lot of comics without necessarily having to spend that much money. I mean, this is the cost of 3 normal issues of comic books at this point, and it has 200 pages of story, which is more than twice the amount that you would get from 3 issues, right? Because those would be about 60 pages. So very, very awesome. Of course, the drawback is that the anthology style doesn't allow for continual storytelling, but it's not that big a deal, right? So yeah, otherwise, let's move on to the comic books. I have a lot of single issue comic books here. Let's look at them. So we have Herculoids, which I don't dislike, but I think I'm going to stop collecting this after issue 5. We have Thundercats Lost. I did stop collecting this after issue 4, I think. Here we have Aquaman number 5. I stopped collecting this after issue 8. So there's one left that I think that I have to pick up. Rogue Sun number 27. This story is pretty enjoyable. I like the idea of the 2 Rogue Suns, but sometimes I feel like Rogue Sun kind of spins its wheels a bit too much. Here's number 4 of the Herculoids. I love the covers, but the storytelling's not that enjoyable in my opinion. Thundercats Lost number 3. Awesome cover here. Really, really love it. And that character is called Neko. Aquaman 6. The Aquaman story has been pretty enjoyable. I think a lot of people like it, and a lot of people don't like it because Jeremy Adams apparently is a right-winger, and I don't like that, but also I don't care. Like, he can have whatever opinions he wants as long as he writes a story well. I will read it because who cares, right? Like, I grew up liking Harry Potter. At that point, she's like the worst author that I can think of, right? And I like reading stuff like Robert E. Howard, who was from the 1920s and of course was racist and shitty about stuff that, within our context today. And so, like, it doesn't matter. Authors themselves, what their thoughts are, what their personal preferences are, don't matter to me. What I care about is, can they tell good stories? Jeremy Adams is pretty good at telling stories, but the Aquaman stories particularly just didn't feel like it was my interest that much. Like, the Flash Gordon stuff that he's writing is a lot better. I think he also does Green Lantern, but I don't really care too much about the Green Lantern, mythos, so I haven't really read it. The Aquaman story was good. It was enjoyable. I liked the fantasy quest kind of vibe to it, but I needed to make some choices regarding my spending, and Aquaman was just kind of bottom of the list, first on the list to get chopped, bottom of the list in terms of enjoyment, and so that's what had to go. It's not necessarily that I care about Jeremy Adams' personal takes or not. It's just there's other things I like more. So yeah, here's Rogue Sun number 28. Here's Aquaman number 7. Like I said, very cool covers here, and the artwork and stuff inside is good. It's just not my favorite compared to other stuff. Plus, I think that there's a better Aquaman run, and that's the Jeff Johns one from the New 52, and I have that collected and I haven't read it yet, so should probably read that before I keep collecting other stuff, right? And it took me 8 issues to realize that, but it is what it is. Return to Skull Island. I enjoyed the anime, so I decided to check out this comic book. It's only 4 issues. This first issue is not that great. The cover is pretty cool though, and at this point I have already picked up 2 other ones. They're in my box. I just haven't bought them, so I'll just finish collecting it and I'll do a review for it on the channel. And we'll see what I think about it then. It will definitely feel like a waste of money regardless. I mean, those are $5 comic books, and that's very expensive for what it is. But I thought it'd be enjoyable, and then when I realized it wasn't, it was too late to cancel it. So I just bad choices on my part. It is what it is, right? We have Hercules number 5. This is a great cover. I do like the composition of it, although maybe it could have been just a bit, different, because the cover is supposed to be for this lady, but it's actually about the little monster things, right? So yeah. Thundercats Lost number 4. Great cover there by Jay Lee. He's not really my favorite cover artist. I don't necessarily love all the stuff that he does, but this looks really great. I like that a lot. Then we have Conan the Barbarian number 23. Awesome cover here. This is cover B, the Greg Staples one. The Dan Panosian one was not that good this time, which is fine. But really good story. I already did a review for it for the other channel. Then we have Gehenna, Naked Progression, Book 1. This is collecting the Gehenna story from the Anthology magazine for the 30th anniversary of Image, I think. Maybe it was the 20th. I think it was the 30th. Or 35th, maybe? I'm not really sure. But, they were doing a celebration through an anthology series, and some of them have been collected, and some of them have not. Gehenna was the one that I was most interested in. Finally did get collected, so I've been buying it. I think there's 3 issues of it out already. The other 2 are in my box, but I picked up the first one. This is in color, whereas originally it was in black and white, and I do like the color. I think it's good, but you should definitely track down the magazine, the Image magazine, or the Image Anthology, I guess, if you want the original versions. And then we have Superman, Absolute Superman number 10. Pretty cool issue there at the end. I think there was a revelation that the Omega Men and the Peacemakers were on the same side the whole time, and the whole thing was a fabricated dichotomy in order to force Superman to interact with them. I'm not sure if I quite buy that, but it was a good story point anyways, and I will continue to collect this because I'm really enjoying it. And I'm not really interested in Absolute Batman, but I think I will be buying the Absolute Wonder Woman in trade paperbacks. I think that's just better for me. Because otherwise I would have bought a lot of variant covers, and I don't want to do that, so it's probably for the best. Also, I don't really like Sheridan's artwork. I think that's who it is, but if it's collected and I can get it for relatively cheap, it's not that bad, right? Then we have Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong number 2. This story has been pretty interesting. They go to the legendary version of the Godzilla universe. They are at Skull Island. Sorry, no, they're at the center of the Earth in the inner world, and they're just there kind of fighting, but not much has happened quite yet. So we'll see how it goes. I might have to drop this series, but I don't think so. I'll probably stick around because I do like the concept of Godzilla and Kong versus the Justice League, right? We have Ultimate Spider-Man number 19. Pretty great issue. I haven't reviewed it yet, but I will get around to it soon. I did quite like it, and the Venom aspect that was in here is really awesome. I liked it a lot. And then, let's see, is there any other comic books, single issue comic books that I have around my table? I don't think so. So the last thing that I've been reading in terms of comic books has been the X-Men. This is the first Epic Collection. I'm nearly done with it, and it's been pretty enjoyable. I will do a proper review for this, although it will be different from what I usually do, because each of these issues, 23 of them, basically all have their own stories, or there's some that have a continuing storyline, but they're not so long that it's a full arc. It's more like 2 or 3 issue arcs. And so reviewing it in the way that I usually do is going to be a little bit hard because there's going to be way too much detail, and I don't want to make like a 3-hour video discussing this book. So I'll probably end up doing it a different way. But this has been quite enjoyable. I think that Stan Lee's kind of writing is pretty interesting because he's, unnecessarily verbose. And that makes the comic book feel pretty dense. Like there's a lot happening, even though after a while, if you read too many of these in a row, you kind of realize, oh, he's just kind of making the characters talk for the sake of talking. They're not really saying anything. But at the same time, that sort of talking and not saying anything is actually working quite well to characterize the characters, right? The characters are independent. They talk differently. They feel different. They seem like they would be a bit more like people than modern comic book characters that you see introduced in, modern Marvel comics nowadays. And so, through these 20 issues, I feel like I really understand a lot of these characters. And maybe it's not that clear, or maybe not that realistic for me to say that, but that's what it ends up feeling like. There are some issues with some of the storytelling elements. For one, the fact that there's only one female character and there's 5 male characters on the team makes it so all of the characters have this like romantic subplot kind of feel with Jean Grey, even the professor, who is supposed to be like a proper, 40-year-old man, 50-year-old man, whereas all the X-Men are supposed to be teenagers. And she has like a romantic subplot where she pines for Scott at the same time as Scott pines for her. But then all of the dialogue that a lot of the characters have with her feels kind of like misogynistic in a way. Sometimes it does seem like it's a joke, especially when she's like, oh, shut up, just, move on, right? Like, when she fights back, it comes off as a joke, right? But sometimes she doesn't fight back, and she comes off as like, oh, just kind of taking it. And it's a little weird. It's not that bad either. Like, I get where it's from, and I know that Stan Lee was a bit of a misogynist anyway, so whatever, it's not that big a problem. But it is kind of funny. And then there's some problems with the storylines themselves, where in quick succession, it feels like the storylines follow the same kind of basic plot line. And it's not a problem per se, but it's like they introduce the Sentinels by having the characters go on vacation and then have to come back. And then immediately after, they introduce the Lucifer kind of larger plot line with the Dominus, which is exactly the same kind of idea. They even have the same kind of concept where they're fighting against these robots that are powerful, right? And then sometimes it's like, these characters have supposed to be training for quite a few years at this point, right? Like, they're teenagers, they're all kind of enrolled in this academy kind of concept, but they basically show the characters training every issue, and yet every new villain shows up and immediately tramples them, and then they beat them at the end. I feel like sometimes the villains, especially when they're villains that have just gained their powers, in the case of the Mimic character, which I think is like issue 19 or something like that, they should beat him pretty easily. And then the concept that should be explored isn't, oh, they're getting beat by a guy that has the same powers as them, but rather, oh, the fact that he has the same powers as them does not mean that he's as good as them. It's because they train that they're good at their powers, right? Like, their powers don't make them necessarily stronger. Like, I feel like that should have been the concept that they were exploring, and rather it wasn't really. And it just felt kind of weird, right? Also, Magneto is supposed to be like, the X-Men villain, and it's kind of funny because for half of this book, he's like in space, trapped as a guinea pig by this guy called the Stranger, and it's pretty funny. But overall, really, really enjoyable. Like, I really like it. I just think it's something you can't read like all day. Like, you have to read a few issues every couple days, right? Like, you can't read all of it in one go, because then you get fed up by the way that it works, right? Like, the way that everything is so verbose, the way that everything is kind of similar but also kind of not, and it becomes a bit of a tedium to kind of read through it if you read it all in one go. But if you give yourself some time in between issues, it is actually quite enjoyable. So, your mileage may vary there, but I do recommend you guys read it because it's pretty interesting. So, yeah, that's it for that. In terms of manga, I have only really read 4 of them. And let's start with Blue Lock. So I read through this issue. It was really, really enjoyable. And it was pretty cool. This one mostly focuses on the game between the Bastard Munchen versus or Munchen, I guess, versus the fake Spain team, FC Barça or something like that. And I quite like it because, for once, Isagi is not the character that's growing. It's the other ones, right? On one hand, Bachira is really, really shining in this, Spanish-style soccer, where Isagi is really struggling with the German-style soccer, right? And then with Kunigami being there, and it turns out that Kunigami was forced to train to become a copy of, like, the top striker in the world right now, which is Noah or something like that. It shows that he's really not like himself, and this changes how Isagi looks at it, right? And he realizes throughout the book that he has to focus on other people in order to grow himself, which is kind of interesting. You wouldn't think that that's the point of Blue Lock, but it works out in this issue like that, right? This volume. Then Iruma-kun number 4, this is pretty fun. I quite like it because this character, even though it seems to be like a meek guy, is actually the only really devil character, and I think that's kind of funny. I know Osama Nishi does a great job here. I quite like their work here. And it's just kind of funny because this is, like, the stuff that's happening here is very similar to the last part of the show Wednesday, right? So in Wednesday, they're kind of having this like, well, it's actually not a school festival. It's like a school camping activity that finishes with this like firework display. And in this issue, which is volume 4, they kind of have a similar kind of display thing where the characters are rushing to try to get through something in order to kind of avoid some sort of loss, right? And it was kind of funny that there was parallels between what I was reading and what I was watching, within the same day. It's not really, that similar at all, but it was kind of funny to me personally. But Iruma-kun's really, really fun. I will get volume 5 as soon as I can, and I already have volume 6, and then I'll continue to collect it going forward for the rest of time until I can finish it. But we'll see how that goes, right? Then I read through Dragon and Chameleon, and it's been really great. This was pretty awesome because the storyline isn't like a massive arc just yet. What it is a collection of smaller stories, kind of elements, right? Which is kind of more in line with like a traditional comic book than like a proper, serialized manga. And this one, this volume collects an arc that is basically about a game show-esque thing where you get 5 different mangaka that are all trying to serialize, and you force them to go through this set of challenges, and at the end, one of them gets a serialization and a guaranteed anime adaptation, even if their story is not necessarily that good. And that's pretty cool. That's a really great thing for these characters, but our main character isn't really the winner. He's actually there mostly as a way to develop the other mangaka in the story, and it's really cool. I really like it because our character has already tasted success, and we know that he was successful, and so our journey isn't really for him to be successful again, although it kind of is, right? Like, this is the plot line, but the way that it's explored isn't really like that. It's actually more about understanding the love that some of these mangaka have towards their craft, probably taking inspiration from like people like Oda and the creator of Dragon Ball more than anything, and using that passion to inspire other creators, right? Kind of like how Oda did to Horikoshi, when he showed off his artwork in one of the SBSs, right? Like, that sort of stuff is really, really cool. And that's really what's highlighted here. Our character, through being forced into the body of this younger person, can use his passion for manga to inspire other young creators to hopefully foster the manga industry into the future, which is really cool. And then I read through Chojin X Volume 1. This is really great, actually. I feel kind of stupid for, deciding that I wasn't going to read it just because it was by a creator I don't like. I mean, not really. I don't feel stupid because of that decision, but I feel like a little stupid because I didn't listen to my friend when he recommended it to me. I kind of blew him off quite a few times, and until he sent me these so that I would read them. He sent me the first 5 for my birthday, and I really enjoyed it a lot. It was actually really fun. It does kind of feel similar to X-Men, like you said. It also feels similar to My Hero Academia, but this is kind of like what happened in the early days of My Hero Academia instead of when we started the story, which is pretty cool. There was one issue with the volume that I had, and it's that chapter 2 in this physical edition is very confusing. And when I looked at the digital edition, it's actually different. I'm not really sure what happened there, but the edition or the version of the chapter that they have on the Viz app or the the Shonen Jump app is actually much, much better than the version they have in this printed edition. This is a first printing, and I think that's really the only printing that's been available so far. So hopefully they change that for printing too. But otherwise, it's been really, really good. It's just that one chapter that was just very confusing. So I recommend that if you pick this up, just skip through to chapter 3 and read the first 2, or the first 3 actually, you can, for free on the Shonen Jump app, and then read the rest of it physically if you're someone that prefers reading physical, just because that'll be less confusing. And that's really all there is to my reading so far. I will do reviews for some of this stuff more in depth. I will do a first impressions review for Chojin X, and we'll see what else I land on for this month. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and see you guys next time.